I used to think that love came in thunderclaps. Loud, dramatic, impossible to ignore. I thought it would strike me like lightning, sudden and devastating. But the truth is, sometimes it sneaks in so quietly you don't even realize it's there until you're already consumed by it. For me, it started with a deck of cards. It was one of those humid summer nights when the air sticks to your skin and makes the whole world feel heavy. I was sitting on the worn-out couch in our shared apartment, a box fan humming in the corner, pushing around air that wasn't really cold but was at least moving. I was half bored, half restless, when he walked in with that lopsided grin that always seemed to undo me. Eli, my roommate, my friend, the guy I swore I would never think about the way I secretly did. He dropped a pack of playing cards onto the coffee table between us, the kind with frayed edges from too many games and too many shuffles. "Let's play," he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I raised an eyebrow. "Cards? What are we, 80? He laughed, flopping down beside me, his thigh brushing mine just briefly enough to set off a spark in my chest. "What? You scared I'll beat you?" It was always like this with us. Playful, teasing, a constant dance around something neither of us dared to name. I rolled my eyes, trying to ignore the way his laughter warmed something deep in me. "Fine, but don't cry when you lose." We started with simple games, Go Fish of all things, which made us both laugh so hard we nearly spilled our sodas. Then it was rummy, then poker, though neither of us had much to gamble with. We bet stupid things, who had to take the trash out, who had to do the dishes, who had to be the one to call the landlord about the broken light in the hallway. But somewhere between the shuffling and the bluffing, between the laughter and the mock arguments, something shifted. I remember the exact moment. He leaned over to deal the cards, his hair falling into his face, and without thinking, I reached out and brushed it back for him. It was automatic, like a reflex, and for a second too long my hand lingered. His eyes flicked up to mine, and the air grew heavier than the summer heat. I pulled back quickly, pretending it was nothing, pretending I wasn't silently screaming at myself. We played on, but my heart wasn't in the game anymore. I was too busy watching the curve of his smile, the way his fingers moved across the cards, the sound of his voice as he teased me about my terrible poker face. And then, just when I thought the night would pass like all the others, filled with laughter, filled with unspoken things he'd never know, he said it. "You know," he murmured, setting his cards down on the table, "you're my greatest bet." I froze. The words hung in the air between us. Impossible to mishear, impossible to take as a joke. My brain scrambled to make sense of them. Did he mean what I thought he meant? Or was this just another layer of his endless teasing? I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He leaned back, his eyes softer now, stripped of all the usual mischief. For once, he wasn't smiling. He was serious, vulnerable. "I mean," he took a breath, as if weighing whether to go all in. "I've bet on a lot of things in my life. I've taken risks, made choices I wasn't sure about. But you, being with you, even just sitting here playing cards, that feels like the one bet I know I'd never regret." My chest tightened. My world tilted. It was everything I'd wanted to hear and everything I was terrified of. Because wanting him in silence was one thing, but having him confess that maybe, just maybe, he wanted me too, that was dangerous. That was real. I laughed nervously, desperate for an escape. "That's some cheesy line, Eli. You practicing for a rom-com audition?" But he didn't laugh. He just looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt naked under his gaze. "I'm not joking," he said quietly. "I think I've been trying not to say it for a long time, but I can't sit here anymore pretending these games don't mean more to me." My hands shook. The cards in front of me blurred. I wanted to say something, anything, but my tongue was heavy, my fear louder than my hope. Because here's the thing, I'd been hurt before. Loving another man wasn't just a risk. It was a gamble where the house always seemed to win. I knew what it felt like to bet my heart on someone and watch it get shattered into pieces. And now Eli, the one person I thought I could keep safe in the realm of just friends, was sitting across from me, asking me to take the riskiest bet of all. I didn't answer him that night. Couldn't. I laughed it off, changed the subject, dealt another hand. He let me. But the air between us was different. Every card we laid down felt heavy with meaning. Every glance lingered too long. Every brush of his hand against mine felt like a question I was too afraid to answer. And later, when he fell asleep on the couch, the fan still humming, I sat there staring at him in the dim light. My chest ached with everything I hadn't said. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to take the bet. But I didn't know if I was brave enough. Because what if he was bluffing? What if this was just a moment? Just a line he'd forget by morning? Or worse, what if he wasn't and I said yes and it ruined everything? So I sat there in silence, watching the rise and fall of his chest as he slept. His face soft and unguarded. And all I could think was, I don't know if I can risk losing him, but I also don't know if I can survive never trying. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice again. Soft, steady, unflinching. You're my greatest bet. It replayed in my head like a broken record, over and over, and the more I tried to push it away, the deeper it sank into me. By the time the sun rose, I'd convinced myself it had to be a dream. Maybe I'd misheard. Maybe he'd been joking after all. That was safer to believe than the alternative, that he'd actually meant it. But when I stumbled into the kitchen the next morning, bleary-eyed and anxious, Eli was already there, leaning against the counter with a mug of coffee in hand. His hair was messy, his eyes still half asleep, but when he looked at me, I swear I saw it. The weight of last night, the unspoken thing between us, still lingering in the air like smoke after a fire. "Morning," he said, voice low and rough. I grabbed a mug just to have something to do with my hands. Morning. He didn't mention it. Not the cards. Not the words. Not the way I'd frozen like a deer in headlights. And part of me was grateful, but another part, the reckless, desperate part, ached for him to bring it up, to force me into choosing. But he didn't. He just sipped his coffee, made small talk about the day ahead, and let me off the hook. Except I wasn't off the hook. Not really, because everywhere I went that day, his words followed me. At work, I found myself staring blankly at my computer screen, his voice drowning out everything else. At lunch, my coworker asked if I was okay, and I lied, said I was just tired. On the bus ride home, I caught my reflection in the window, eyes shadowed, lips pressed tight, and I realized I was scared. Not scared of him, scared of what he made me feel. When I got home, Eli was sprawled on the couch, controller in hand, playing some video game. He looked up, flashed me that easy grin, and for a moment, it was almost like nothing had changed. Almost. But then his eyes lingered, searching, as if he was waiting for me to say something. And I couldn't. My throat closed up. So I mumbled an excuse about being tired and locked myself in my room. That became the pattern over the next few days. We tiptoed around it, both of us pretending like we hadn't crossed some invisible line. We still joked, still cooked dinner together, still argued about whose turn it was to do laundry. But beneath it all was a tension that hadn't been there before. And every night, when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I thought about what he'd said. You're my greatest bet. The truth is, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to throw caution to the wind and tell him everything. That I'd been falling for him quietly, helplessly, for months. That every laugh, every late-night conversation, every accidental touch had chipped away at the walls I built around my heart. But fear is a powerful thing. Fear reminded me of every time I'd let myself believe in love, only to watch it slip away. Fear reminded me of the whispers, the rejection, the loneliness that came with being a man who loved other men. And so I stayed quiet, until one night, about a week later, we found ourselves back at the coffee table with that same deck of cards. I don't even remember how it happened. One minute we were flipping channels, the next he was shuffling the cards, his fingers moving with practiced ease. "Come on," he said, smirking. "One more game. For old time's sake." I wanted to say no. I wanted to avoid it. Avoid him. Avoid the way my chest clenched just watching him shuffle. But something in his eyes, soft, hopeful, pulled me in. So I sat down across from him. We played in silence at first, the only sounds the slap of cards against the table, the hum of the fan in the corner. But I could feel his gaze on me, heavy and insistent. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Why did you say that?" I blurted out. His brow furrowed. "Say what?" "That I was your greatest bet." The words tasted strange on my tongue, like admitting a secret out loud for the first time. He set his cards down slowly, carefully, as if the wrong move might shatter something fragile between us. "Because it's true." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "You can't just say things like that, Eli." "Why not?" His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed him, uncertainty flickering beneath the bravado. "Why can't I tell you how I feel?" My heart stuttered. Because it changes everything. Maybe it's supposed to." Silence stretched between us, thick and unrelenting. I couldn't look at him. If I did, I knew I'd break. He sighed, leaning back against the couch. "Look, I'm not asking you for an answer right now. I just needed you to know. I'm tired of pretending." The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in me. And before I could stop myself, I whispered, "Do you know how much it scares me? To want this, to want you." His eyes widened. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Then maybe we're both scared. But isn't that what makes it worth it?" My throat tightened. Tears burned behind my eyes. Because damn it, he was right. Every part of me screamed to run, to hide, to keep my heart locked away. But another part, the part that had been quietly, hopelessly in love with him, was begging me to take the risk. I didn't give him an answer that night either. But when he reached across the table, his hand brushing mine, I didn't pull away. And that small act, that tiny surrender, felt like the beginning of something I'd been too afraid to imagine. After that night, everything felt different. Not in a loud, obvious way, but in the small, quiet ways that sneak under your skin before you realize how much they matter. The way his hand would linger against mine just a second longer than necessary. The way his eyes searched my face as if memorizing me, like he was afraid I might disappear. The way silence between us no longer felt empty but charged, alive, full of unspoken words. We didn't talk about it again right away. It was almost as if we both knew that pushing too hard, too soon, might break the fragile thing blooming between us. So instead, we carried on with our days, work, chores, shared meals, late-night TV marathons. But beneath it all was the quiet hum of something more. And yet, fear still clung to me. I wanted him. God, I wanted him. But wanting him meant risking everything. Our friendship, our home, the safety of what we had built together. What if it went wrong? What if he realized I wasn't what he wanted after all? What if I lost him? That question haunted me more than anything. Could I survive losing him? One Friday night, a thunderstorm rolled in. The rain pounded against the windows. The lights flickered once, twice, before finally holding steady. Eli and I sat on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between us, watching some dumb comedy neither of us was really paying attention to. I remember the moment so clearly. The sound of rain, the faint glow of the TV, the way his knee brushed mine and didn't move away. Out of nowhere, he said softly, "You still haven't answered me." My heart stilled. I knew exactly what he meant. I tried to laugh it off, my old defense mechanism. "You're persistent. I'll give you that." But he didn't laugh. His eyes stayed on the screen, his voice low. "I just need to know if I'm playing alone in this. Because if I am, I'll fold. I don't want to make you uncomfortable." Something in me cracked. The thought of him folding, of him retreating back into just friends, hit me like a punch to the chest. I turned to him, my voice trembling. "You're not playing alone." He finally looked at me, and in his eyes was something raw, something I'd been too afraid to let myself hope for relief. "Then what are we doing?" he asked gently. And that was the question, wasn't it? What were we doing? Balancing on a knife's edge between friendship and something far more dangerous, far more beautiful. I swallowed hard. "I don't know, but I'm scared, Eli. I'm so scared." He reached for my hand then, slow and careful, as if giving me every chance to pull away. But I didn't. Couldn't. My fingers curled into his like they'd been waiting to all along. Me too, he admitted. But maybe that's what makes it real. The thunder outside seemed to echo in my chest, loud and relentless. For a long moment, we just sat there, hand in hand, breathing in sync, the storm raging around us. And then he said it again, almost like a vow. You're still my greatest bet. This time, I didn't flinch. Instead, I whispered, then maybe it's time I finally put my chips on the table. His breath caught, and before I could lose my nerve, I leaned in. Our lips met softly at first, hesitant, testing, as if both of us were afraid the world might collapse around us if we pushed too far. But the world didn't end. The world began. The kiss deepened, slow and aching, every ounce of longing we'd been holding back spilling into it. My hand found the back of his neck, his fingers tightened around mine, and in that moment, everything else, fear, doubt, hesitation, faded away. When we finally pulled back, our foreheads rested together, breaths mingling, hearts racing. He smiled then, that lopsided grin that had undone me from the very beginning. So, does this mean you're in? I laughed, tears blurring my vision. Yeah, I'm in. It should have been simple after that. Boy meets boy. Boy admits feelings. Boy and boy kiss. Roll credits, happy ending. But life isn't a movie. Loving him wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of the hardest, most beautiful gamble of my life. Because love doesn't erase fear. Love doesn't magically make the world kinder or safer or easier. What love does, real love, is give you a reason to fight through the fear anyway. And that's what Eli became for me. My reason, my risk, my bet. But bets don't always go the way you think they will. Because as much as we were falling for each other, the world outside our apartment walls wasn't always ready to make space for us. And as much as I wanted to believe that love was enough, I was about to learn that sometimes, even the greatest bets come with losses you never see coming. The first cracks didn't come from us. They came from outside. For weeks after that stormy night, Eli and I lived in what felt like a fragile paradise. Everything was new, everything was tender. Brushing teeth side by side in the bathroom suddenly felt intimate. Grocery runs turned into secret adventures. Our hands brushing in the cereal aisle, our eyes catching over the cart. Even lying on opposite ends of the couch, our feet tangled like neither of us wanted to let go. It was ordinary, but it was ours. And then the outside world started to creep in. It happened one night when Eli invited a few of his friends over for poker. He asked me to join, and I did, even though I wasn't sure if I could keep a straight face. Sitting around the table, pretending like Eli wasn't the same man who kissed me breathless just the night before. It felt surreal. They joked, drank, teased each other the way guys do. And for a while, it almost worked. I was just another player at the table, bluffing my way through hands, laughing at the stupid banter. But then one of them made a comment, harmless to him, maybe, but sharp as glass to me. Man, Eli, you're way too cozy with your roommate. You two like an old married couple or something. The table erupted in laughter. Eli chuckled along, shaking his head. Yeah. He just can't live without me. That's all. They moved on, the moment passing as quickly as it came. But I felt the words lodge in my chest, heavy and suffocating. Married couple. If only they knew. I forced a smile, played my cards, laughed when I was supposed to. But inside, my stomach churned. It was the first reminder of what we were up against, the way the world saw us, or refused to see us at all. Later that night, after his friends left, I was cleaning up the empty beer bottles when Eli came up behind me, slipping his arms around my waist. You okay? He asked softly. I hesitated. Do you ever think about what happens if they find out? If anyone finds out? He pressed his forehead to the back of my neck. All the time. And it doesn't scare you? Of course it does, he admitted. But you scare me more. I turned, confused. What does that mean? His eyes were steady, vulnerable. I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of them knowing. It should have been comforting. In a way it was, but it also scared me more, because I wasn't sure I could be as brave as him. The weeks turned into months, and little by little, the walls we'd built around ourselves grew thinner. We couldn't help it. Love has a way of seeping into everything. A hand held a second too long in public. A glance that lingered. A laugh that gave us away. And then came the night it all nearly broke. It was a Saturday, and Eli had convinced me to go out with him to a bar. Not a gay bar, just a regular dive where he liked to shoot pool. I resisted at first, worried about how we'd have to act. But he promised we'd just be friends in the eyes of everyone else. No one would notice, but someone did. We were standing close by the jukebox, arguing playfully over which song to pick, when a guy at the bar sneered at us. "Jesus, you two look like you need a room."
Eli stiffened beside me.
"What's your problem, man?" The guy laughed, mean and sharp. "Nothing. Just don't shove your fairy shit in our faces." Time slowed. My chest went cold. I waited for Eli to back down, to let it go, to pull me out of there. But instead, he squared his shoulders. "He's with me," he said firmly. "So if you've got something to say it to me." My heart pounded. Fear and pride collided inside me, warring for dominance. Because in that moment, Eli wasn't bluffing. He was all in. The guy muttered something under his breath and turned away. But the damage was done. My hands were shaking. My throat was tight. All I wanted was to run. We left the bar in silence. The night air was cool against my burning skin. Back at the apartment, I finally snapped. "What the hell were you thinking?" I demanded, pacing the living room. Eli looked at me, calm but hurt. "I was thinking I wasn't going to let him talk to you like that. You practically announced it to the whole place. So what if I did?" His voice rose now, frustration bleeding through. "Are we supposed to hide forever? Pretend this doesn't exist just because some asshole can't handle it?" "Yes," I shouted, before I could stop myself. The word hung in the air, ugly and sharp. Silence. His face fell, like I just laid down the cruelest hand of all. "You can't mean that," he said quietly. I swallowed hard, guilt crashing over me. "Eli, I can't. Not like you. I'm not that brave." He took a step toward me, but I backed away. The space between us felt like a chasm. "You think I'm not scared?" he asked, voice breaking now. "You think this is easy for me? Because it's not. Every second I'm terrified. But the difference is, I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." Tears stung my eyes, but I couldn't speak. Couldn't admit how much his words gutted me. He shook his head, whispering, "Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I bet on the wrong hand." Then he walked away into his room, the door clicking shut behind him. And for the first time since that stormy night, I felt like I'd lost him. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing every muffled sound from the other side of the wall. Eli moving around, drawers opening, the floor creaking under his weight. Each sound was a reminder of how close he was, and yet how impossibly far away I felt from him. His words kept replaying in my head, cutting deeper every time. Maybe I bet on the wrong hand. It was exactly what I had feared from the beginning. That my fear would push him away. That my silence, my hesitation, my cowardice would cost me the one person who had dared to take a chance on me. By morning, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I walked into the kitchen to find a note on the counter. His handwriting messy, rushed, spread across the page. "I need some space. Don't know when I'll be back."
No goodbye. No explanation.
Just space. And suddenly, the apartment that had always felt warm and alive was unbearably empty. I tried to tell myself it was temporary, that he just needed time to cool off. But hours turned into days, and the silence grew heavier. Every room screamed of him. His jacket draped over the back of the chair, his half-empty shampoo bottle in the shower, the deck of cards still sitting on the coffee table where it had all started. I kept circling back to one question. Had I pushed him too far? I thought about calling him, about showing up wherever he was, begging him to come back. But every time I picked up my phone, fear stopped me. What if he didn't want to hear from me? What if space really meant the end? The loneliness was unbearable. I went through the motions, work, groceries, laundry, but I wasn't really living. I was existing in the absence of him, haunted by every memory. And then, one night about a week later, I found myself at the coffee table again, staring at that worn-out deck of cards. My hands shook as I shuffled them, the sound sharp in the silence. I laid them out in a game of solitaire, watching as the suits fell into place, one by one. But the thing about solitaire is it's meant to be played alone. I realized then that I didn't want to play alone anymore. Not with cards. Not with life. Not with love. The next morning I called him. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I left a message, my voice trembling.
Annie, I'm sorry.
For everything. For being scared. For not being as brave as you. But the truth is, I don't care about hiding anymore. I don't care about what people think. I just care about you. And if I lose you because I was too afraid to say that, then I really did bet wrong. Please, just come home. I didn't know if he'd ever listen to it. But for the first time, I'd said what needed to be said. 3 more days passed. Each one felt like a year. And then, one evening, I heard the sound of keys in the lock. I shot up from the couch, heart pounding, as the door opened. And there he was, Eli. Tired, disheveled, eyes guarded. But he was there. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence stretched, heavy with everything unspoken. Finally, he broke it. I got your message. I swallowed hard. And, he set his bag down, ran a hand through his hair. And I don't know if I can do this if you're going to keep running every time it gets hard. I know, I whispered. And I'm done running. His eyes flicked up to mine, searching, as if trying to decide whether to believe me. I was scared. I admitted, my voice breaking. Not of you, never of you, just of what it would mean, of how people would see us, of how much I could lose. But the truth is, Eli, I already lost more in this last week without you than I ever could by being with you. His breath hitched. He took a step closer. You mean that? I nodded, tears blurring my vision. You said I was your greatest bet. Well, you're mine too, and I'm all in now. No more folding. For a moment, he just stared at me, his expression unreadable. And then, slowly, the walls around his eyes began to crumble. Relief, warmth, love. All of it spilled through. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me into his arms. I clung to him like a drowning man clinging to shore, burying my face in his chest. His scent, his warmth, his presence. It all came rushing back, and I realized just how lost I had been without him. I thought I lost you, I choked out. You almost did, he whispered, his voice breaking. But I couldn't stay away. Not really. When he kissed me then, it wasn't hesitant like before. It wasn't cautious or testing. It was desperate, hungry, full of all the longing we'd both been drowning in. And in that kiss, I knew this was it. This was the bet worth risking everything for. Later, when we pulled apart, breathless and tear-streaked, he cupped my face in his hands and said, No more half measures. If we're doing this, we're doing it for real. For real, I promised. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Because love isn't about winning every hand. It's about being willing to play, even when the stakes are high. It's about trusting that the person across the table isn't trying to beat you. They're betting right alongside you. And as Eli held me that night, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't playing alone anymore. After that night, after the fight and the silence and the coming back together, something shifted between us. It wasn't just tentative affection anymore. It wasn't just the thrill of something new. It was commitment. We weren't fumbling in the dark, hoping not to bump into the edges of fear. We'd hit those edges hard and we were still standing. Eli and I talked late into the night, about what scared us, about what we wanted, about how we would handle the world outside our door. It wasn't all romantic confessions and easy promises. There were long pauses, raw admissions, uncomfortable truths. I told him about the boy I had loved in college, the one who swore he'd choose me, only to leave the moment his friends started asking questions. I told him how the shame of that rejection still clung to me, how every time I thought about opening my heart, I heard the echo of that door slamming shut. He listened. He didn't flinch. He didn't try to fix it. He just held my hand and said, "I'm not him. And I won't be." And for the first time, I believed it. We made a pact that night. To stop hiding. Not recklessly, not by shouting it from rooftops, but by refusing to shrink ourselves. If we wanted to hold hands walking home at midnight, we would. If someone asked if we were more than friends, we wouldn't lie. It felt terrifying. And it felt liberating. The next test came sooner than I expected. A few weeks later, Eli's sister invited us to her birthday dinner. She'd always liked me. At least as much as someone could like their brother's roommate. But as we got dressed, my nerves tangled themselves into knots. What if she hates it? I asked, adjusting my shirt for the 10th time. Eli glanced up from tying his shoes. Hates what? You know, us. He stood, walked over, and placed his hands on my shoulders. Then that's her loss. But she won't. Trust me. I wanted to trust him. I did. But when we walked into that restaurant, hand brushing hand, my chest felt tight enough to crack. Dinner started off easy, laughs, stories, catching up. His sister teased him about his messy apartment, about his inability to cook anything beyond eggs. I laughed along, grateful for the normalcy. And then, halfway through the meal, she tilted her head, looked between us, and asked casually, "So, are you two ever going to admit you're together? Or are we all supposed to keep pretending?" My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Heat rushed up my neck. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out.
Eni, taug, Eli just grinned.
He reached over, took my hand, and squeezed. Yeah, we're together. The world didn't end. His sister smiled wide, rolled her eyes and said, "About time." That was it. No drama.
No disappointment.
Just acceptance. And in that moment, I realized something I should have known all along. Not everyone would reject us. Not everyone would turn away. Some people might actually love us more for our honesty. The more we stopped hiding, the easier it became. Not always. There were still moments of fear, moments of hesitation. But every time doubt crept in, Eli was there, steady and unwavering, reminding me why this bet was worth it. Our love grew in the in-betweens, in cooking breakfast together on lazy Sundays, in falling asleep tangled on the couch during movie marathons, in the way he'd steal my hoodie and pretend it was his, in the way I'd find little notes tucked into my bag before work, scribbled reminders that I was his lucky charm. One night, months after that first confession, we were playing cards again at the coffee table. It had become our ritual, our anchor. Eli shuffled the deck, his grin mischievous. "High card wins." I raised an eyebrow. "Wins what?" He smirked. "You'll see." I drew a queen. He drew a king. Of course. With a dramatic flourish, he set his card down. "Looks like I win." I rolled my eyes. "Fine. What do you want?" He leaned across the table, eyes sparkling, and whispered, "Forever." For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Then I laughed, shaking my head. "That's a hell of a bet." He shrugged, smile softening. "Then it's a good thing I always play to win." We kissed then, surrounded by cards scattered across the table, the fan humming in the corner, the night heavy and sweet around us. And I thought back to the very beginning, to the boy who walked in with a deck of cards and changed my life without meaning to the man who looked me in the eye and said I was his greatest bet. Back then, I didn't know if I was brave enough to take the risk. I didn't know if love was worth the gamble. But now, with him beside me, I finally understood. Love isn't about certainty. It isn't about guarantees. It's about choosing anyway. About putting your heart on the table, even when you don't know how the hand will play out. And in Eli, I had found the one person who made the gamble feel less like a risk and more like destiny. So I took his hand, kissed him again, and whispered, "Then deal me in. Always." Because he was right. He had always been right. He was my greatest bet too.